Too quiet in here. Maybe we need to go back to the pre-service video one.
Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. I am Mary Tarbell Green, this morning's worship associate. To be or not to be? I'm sorry, I just had to do that. Our church is a place where you feel free to be you, your full identity, your questioning mind, your expansive heart. Our mission is to welcome you with love, to support learning and spiritual growth, and to serve our wider community, and to work for justice, equality, and inclusiveness. Please read the announcements and inserts in today's program, where you'll find important information regarding accommodations, as well as our new process for collecting donations, loves, and concerns to the back table. Our ushers will also happily answer questions for you. The flowers today, oh my goodness, the wedding yesterday with Amanda and Kyle. So the flowers that you see are donated by Amanda and Kyle, Mr. and Mrs. There will be 2 forums to discuss the bylaws, revisions you received via email, and they'll also be introduced at last week's congregational meeting. It's Sunday, February 11th after church. It's also Tuesday, February 27th at 7 o'clock on Zoom. There will be a vote of the proposed bylaws, amendments at a special congregational meeting on March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day. The workshop on dementia that I was trying to organize will be delayed because there are too many things happening on February 11th, so I'll keep you posted. Before we greet our neighbors, let's take a moment to wave to the people watching at home, and then rise and greet our neighbors, say hello in the chat, and when you hear the singing bell, please come back. Greet, greet. Mm-hmm. No. What's her name? Chloe. Could all the stubborn people please come find your... All around the world, the light of honest thought shines, showing people the path to their own authentic faith. All around the world, the warmth of community glows, drawing people in from loneliness and from estrangement. All around the world, the flame of justice burns, inspiring people to acts of faith-filled courage. Here, too, may the light and the warmth of this chalice be a beacon of truth, generosity, and compassion, that we may learn the ways of faith and love. Our first hymn this morning is 1011, Return Again. I think that's in the turquoise. We'll sing through 3 times, and please rise if you're able. Our message for all ages this morning is The World Collector by Peter Reynolds, which Molly Gillespie will read.
Good morning, everyone. Later, the adults are going to hear Reverend Alex talk about William Shakespeare. He was a writer and a playwright, a poet, and he used words that we know now were in completely different ways, sometimes for the first time. So in the spirit of that, we're going to read The Word Collector by Peter Reynolds. Collectors collect things. Some people collect stamps. Some people collect coins. Others collect rocks. Some collect art. Some collect bugs. Others collect baseball cards. Some people collect comic books. And Jerome? What did he collect? Jerome collected words. He collected words he heard. Certain words caught his attention. My trip to Peru was perfectly pleasant. He collected words he saw. Certain words jumped out at him. Willow, tea shop. He collected words he read. Certain words popped off the page. Emerald. Short and sweet words, spark, bloom, drift, dream. 2-syllable treats, treasure, motif, whisper, glimmer, hover, candid. And multi-syllable words that sounded like little songs. Guacamole, kaleidoscope, wonderful, symphony, geometry. There were words he did not know the meaning of at first, but they were marvelous to say. Effervescent, vociferous, aromatic. And there were words whose sounds were perfectly suited to their meaning. Molasses, torrential, Tyrannosaurus Rex, bellow, smudge. Jerome filled his scrapbook with more and more of his favorite words. Jerome's collections grew, and he began organizing them. Dreamy, science, sad, action, poetic. One day, while he was transporting them, Jerome slipped and his words went flying. As he began to pick them up, he noticed his collections had become jumbled. Big words next to little words. Sad words next to dreamy words. Jerome began stringing words together, words he had not imagined being side by side. Whisper, symphony, electric peace. Savor dreams, cascading stars. He used his words to write poems. He used his poems to make songs. They moved. They delighted. Some of his simplest words were his most powerful. I understand. I'm sorry. Thank you. You matter. Jerome eagerly collected more and more of his favorite words. The more words he knew, the more he could clearly share share with the world what he was thinking, feeling, and dreaming. One breezy afternoon, Jerome climbed to the highest hill, pulling a wagon packed with his word collection. He smiled as he emptied his collection of words into the wind. He saw children in the valley below scurrying about, collecting words from the breeze. Jerome had no words to describe how happy that made him. Reach for your own words, tell the world who you are and how you will make it better. Peter Reynolds. And what word would you share?
What's your favorite word? Scratch. Right now, our favorite word is dismiss, as we will kindly sing out our children. I'm looking for Vanna White, Carol, and Philip, our ushers. I can't see them. Yeah, but I want to see if they're here. Oh, there they are. They're ready. All right. Offering, the first Sunday of the month, we do a physical offering, share the plate. In weeks following, you'll find a box there that you can place your donation. One of the ways that you can support the work of the First Unitarian Church is by making a financial contribution to one of our various efforts, which is Share the Plate. A pledge or a donation is a non-directed gift. These and various other efforts are listed in the drop-down menu of the church website contribution page, which is firstuu.com. Members, please note that our Breeze Member Systems has a Give Now drop-down. Anyone who wants to make a financial contribution by texting the word GIVE to 513-717-7373. If you prefer to contribute by check, please write the check to First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. Specify on the little line what it might be for. It could be specifically Share the Plate. Place a collection box on the table in the back, or today we get to physically pass the basket. So once a month we pick a theme, and today is the New Life Furniture Bank. And if you don't know what that is, it's an organization where, number one, they come to you and pick up your nicely used, not abused, nicely used furniture or items. And they actually physically house somebody with the things that you've, maybe it's a side table, maybe it's a chair. So New Life Furniture Bank, and at this moment, we're going to pass the basket for your donations to New Life Furniture Bank for February.
When people become homeless, they lose everything that they have. Generally, people's situations are so desperate by the time they come into a shelter or end up on the street that they really have exhausted every resource they have, so they have nothing. And our goal in the homeless services system is for people to get back into stable housing.
New Life Furniture Bank is the region's only furniture bank. We work a lot like a food bank, only collecting gently used home furnishings and providing that to families that are starting over. Nearly 80% of the families we serve report earning less than $12,000 per year. Half of the people are children, many of them sleeping on the floor. At New Life Furniture Bank, we believe in the healing power of both giving and receiving to empower our communities to come together and help our most vulnerable neighbors. Having a furnished home restores dignity, brings pride of ownership, adds confidence, and allows families to stabilize while working towards self-sufficiency.
And this morning we have Jill Keefe from New Life Furniture Bank to tell us a little more.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me, Cynthia, for arranging this. And please forgive me. I had planned to stay with you all this morning for both service and your luncheon. However, I've heard from Northern Illinois that my dad has fallen, so I think I might be headed north. But anyway, thank you again for having me. I have been on staff at New Life Furniture Bank for 10 years now, so I've seen a lot of growth and change, but the constant is our mission to serve people in need with whole house furniture. And that's where you come in. We don't buy this furniture. We need donated furniture. When grandma has passed, or somebody downsizes or moves or gets new, there is often, that put aside dresser, sofa, whatever it might be. We need those things. If they're in your garage, up in the attic, just waiting for who might need it, I'm here to tell you that we do. We do offer a pickup service. You can schedule all of that online. Last year, we delivered to 2,278 homes, not people, but homes. That's, a lot of logistics that I help manage. And the other part that I want you to know is we take very seriously about how we help people. I get 20, 30 calls every day. I need furniture. I saw your truck at my neighbor's house. Can I get it too? As much as I would love to say we're on our way, we are very strategic and intentional about who we help. We partner with about 75 social service agencies, Talbert House, Shelter House, Lighthouse, Caracol, the list goes on. They're all listed on the website for you to know that. And through those partnerships, those caseworkers who are spending time with and getting to know and understanding, surrounding with care, the people in need, they can make a referral to us. We are grateful for your financial gifts. That helps us operate, but really more than anything, we need your furniture. They do go hand in hand. We can't do what we do without either of those things. But a third way you can help is to volunteer with us. We have several volunteer opportunities, from sorting donations that come into us to actually going out on a delivery. Not because we need you to lift sofas, we have staff to do that, but so that you can be a part of seeing and witnessing exactly what we do. We go into a home, as you saw on the video, that is empty. There is nothing, and people are what we call nesting. They're sleeping on the few clothes that they have. And in 30 minutes to an hour, we have delivered them, sofa, chair, coffee table, kitchen table, chairs, a bed, a dresser, a nightstand. Now it's home. We as a community, society, we work really hard to get people into, and we've secured and housed. I'd invite you anytime to come out and see us. We're in Blue Ash. We'd love to show you around our operation, but we would love to we have woodworkers that come. The Cincinnati Woodworking Club, they have committed to us, and we build tables. So if that piques your interest, go to our website and you can see all of our volunteer opportunities. It was delightful to get to, I live in South Lebanon up by Kings Island, and it was a beautiful drive here this morning to this beautiful building. I've not been in here before. This is glorious, and I'm just delighted to have been able to see it and be with you all. And I apologize that I am going to sneak out. I had hoped to field questions from you. Please visit our website. Cynthia knows how to get a hold of me and us. If you have any questions or concerns about how you might be able to help us, we're just a phone call away. And again, I thank you for having me, and I'm just delighted to have been here. Peace.
The veritable Tim Krause is going to share Black History Moment with us today.
Good morning. This is our first Sunday of Black History Month, and I wanted to share with you a bit of Black history. And little did I know that the Cincinnati Enquirer chose the same topic that I have chosen. And like minds, I guess. But thanks to Jeff Cease, the rest of Cincinnati will get to know a little bit about Sarah Fawcett as well. What he didn't tell you, though, in his article was that Sarah was a friend of our congregation. As a civil rights activist and an abolitionist and an active member of the Underground Railroad, Sarah Fawcett, and you can tell by the picture here, was not somebody that you would cross more than once. She was resolute and she was ready and able to do everything she could. She worked diligently on the Underground Railroad, but like so many civil rights activists and activists in the abolitionist movement who were black, she was an independent business person. She was not totally dependent on the white economy to make her livelihood. She was a hairdresser, but she also did hairdressing for the well-to-do in Cincinnati, and many of the women of our congregation went to Sarah Fawcett to get their hair done. So, but she was particularly close to Peter and Frances Clark, who were also members of our congregation, and they in their own right were active in the Underground Railroad. But what Sarah is most known for is the fact that she was the Rosa Parks of the 19th century. She did not sit down, she just stood on the Cincinnati streetcar and demanded to be able to ride the Cincinnati streetcar because she had the fare to do so. She was brutally treated, kicked off the streetcar, and dragged by the streetcar for an entire city block. Not to be turned away, though. She filed suit against the Cincinnati Streetcar Company and the conductor that beat her up, and she won a settlement that was worth about $2,000. And from that point forward, black women and children were allowed to ride the streetcar. Now, the streetcar was available for black men after 1866 when another lawsuit was filed on behalf of a black man and winning the right for all citizens of Cincinnati to ride the streetcars. So in some ways, Cincinnati was ahead of the rest of the country in allowing that to happen, particularly places in the South. So next week, we will talk about Sarah's husband, Peter Fawcett, who comes from the long line of the Hemmings family and Thomas Jefferson's plantation. He ended up marrying Sarah Fawcett, and you will hear more about that next week. Thank you.
So after our meditation this morning, we will do a minute or two of silence before our second hymn. As we do our meditation, I notice that some folks tend not so much to meditate, but to watch me read. And that's okay if that's what you want to do, but I encourage you, if you prefer to meditate, to make yourself comfortable and listen to the beginning instructions of this meditation, and keep your eyes closed and just let the next 5 minutes be whatever they are. Take a moment and let your attention sink into your chest, where you can feel the soft, intoxicating rhythm of your own heartbeat. If you allow yourself to do this, you will find a comfort there within yourself that is always available to you, waiting for you to remember, to return. Take another moment and let your attention travel to the sensation of your breath as it flows in and out of your body, where your abdomen rises and falls as that life force continually fills you. And God blew into Adam the breath of life. If you allow yourself to do this, you will find a comfort there within yourself that is always available to you, waiting for you to remember, to return. Whether you prefer to place your attention on the rhythm of your heartbeat or the flow of your breath, hold your attention there and let the words I speak next simply rise into your awareness and pass away. Don't think about the meaning of these words. Don't worry about remembering these words. Simply keep your attention fixed on the rhythm of your heartbeat or the flow of your breath, and let your unconscious manage everything else. What you need to retain, you will retain. In this moment, you have gifted yourself with a rare opportunity for sacred time and space in your life. Honor that. In this moment, let go of all the responsibilities, concerns, and pressures of daily life that you have carried with you into this day. It's okay to drop all of that for a while. I guarantee you, when this meditation is over, it will all return to you, for better or worse, as you so choose. And now, in this sacred time and space, consider that your life is always unfinished business. Life is always unfinished business. And consider that the lives of other people is always unfinished business. Allow your life to be a work in progress. Allow the lives of others to be works in progress. From dawn to dusk, your life is a work in progress. From dawn to dusk, the lives of others are works in progress. From year to year, your life is a work in progress. From year to year, the lives of others are works in progress. From cradle to grave, your life is a work in progress. From cradle to grave, the lives of others are works in progress. we should never expect ourselves to be complete. We should never expect others to be complete. Life is a work in progress. Can you allow this for yourself? Can you allow this for others? Can you have that much understanding and compassion for yourself? Can you have that much understanding and compassion for others? In this sacred time and space, consider that your life is always unfinished business, and that the lives of other people is always unfinished business. So don't despair that you are still in the making. Don't despair that we are all still in the making. This is the nature of things, the way of becoming, the point of this rhythm and this flow. Our next hymn this morning is number 352, Find a Stillness. Please rise as you are able. It's crowded up here. And we lowered our camera. I don't know if any of you noticed the angle on the video is different, which means I can get closer to you all at will. See, look at that. which is what I've wanted for a while. So, just as in case I forget at the end of the sermon, there's a potluck today, and there's a First U 101 course for newer people, class for newer people that I need to be at. So following the service, I'm not going to do a receiving line. There's just too much going on this morning. So not to worry about getting to the potluck on time or getting to the class on time. So I've got a whole bunch of books I want to write before I die, which will probably never get written. And so sermons are as close to book writing as I'll ever get. So consider today a book and a sermon about Shakespeare As Spiritual Guide. I've got a whole list of these I want to do. I wrote my doctoral thesis on Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher who said God is dead. And I have this design to write a book called Nietzsche As Spiritual Guide, and Khalil Gibran as Spiritual Guide, and Darwin as Spiritual Guide. So those all may show up at sermons at some point in time. And the reason why is because there's profound knowledge and wisdom in these folks. Shakespeare is one that I think is particularly profound. Shakespeare's hard to read, but if you're willing to put the effort into Shakespeare, and not just read Shakespeare to say, I've read Shakespeare, but to ponder Shakespeare, to understand the genius that's in Shakespeare, is well worth the effort. And so I've pondered Shakespeare a fair amount, and there are just these golden nuggets of psychological wisdom in Shakespeare that I think if you don't ponder Shakespeare and you merely read Shakespeare, you might tend to miss. So this sermon is kind of an extended meditation on my take on what I see as some of the genius psychological work in Shakespeare. So let's start with Hamlet, right? This above all, to thine own self be true, and you know the rest? What's the rest? And it must follow as the night the day, that thou canst be false to any man, or in today's language, person. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, that thou canst not then be false to anyone. Probably next to be or not to be, this is one of Shakespeare's most common lines. And I want to contemplate it with you for a few minutes, just to show you what I think is inherent in these lines. This is a recipe for living. To thine own self be true. 6 words. A recipe for living. And if you spend your life doing nothing other than trying to be true to your own self, you will have lived a life well lived. But the reality is that we're often not true to ourselves, are we? Raise your hand if you are always true to yourself. Nobody. Raise your hand if you've at least once in your life not been true to yourself. All right. So, why is it so hard to be true to ourselves? I think this is a really interesting question, at least from my perspective. You know, I know we're all scoundrels, right? But within the shell of our scoundrelness, I think we are wonderful creatures with inherent goodness, with a potential to live all of the wonderful qualities that we aspire to live by. So why is it so hard? Well, I'm going to suggest to you a phrase that I use fairly often called the gaze of the other. Let's talk about the gaze of the other for a minute. So, sometimes I say things to people and they laugh at me. And one of the things I say to people, if you can understand this, it will change your life. And people laugh. But usually when I say that, I mean it. There are simple concepts that if we truly understand them and work with them in the lived reality of our lives, can change our lives. And this concept of the gaze of the other is one of those. If you can understand the significance of the gaze of the other and how to do work around this concept in your life, it will change your life. If you don't get this concept, you will never be free. You will never be free. You'll always be entrapped by the gaze of the other unless you do this work. So what is the gaze of the other? What is that work? If you go on YouTube and you type in the search bar, still face experiment, you will get a 7 or 8 minute video on what was called the still face experiment, done, 20, maybe 30 years ago. And the still face experiment is very simple. They take a young mother with her young child, pretty young child, I can't remember, 6, 9 months old, pre-verbal. And so they basically say to the mother, look, just hang out with your kid for a while and have your normal mother-child exchange. So the kid and the mother are doing their wonderful nurturing thing back and forth. He Googles and gets her attention, and she smiles and says, oh, what a good boy, you're wonderful. And he loves that, and he responds again, and she loves his response and responds again. And they play sort of like this serve and return of nurturing and affirmation with each other. And then they say to her, the next time he responds to you, don't respond. Just go still face. Just for a couple of minutes. So she does this, and he tries to get her attention. All the things that have worked in the past on how to get Mama's attention suddenly aren't working. Mama's not responding the way Mama usually does. And you can probably anticipate what happens. A stressful reaction from the child, because the caretaker is no longer returning the serve. The still face has removed from the child any sense of affirmation about being in the world. So, what this means is, from the moment we're born, we look to the caretaker. We look to the person who has power over us in order to get a sense of, how am I doing in this situation? What is my relationship relative to this caretaker or this person who has so much power over me? And we're all very aware, if you've spent much time with children, they're very responsive to power and authority in their lives. Why? Well, they're helpless and vulnerable, and they're not autonomous, and they can't take care of themselves. So there's this unconscious awareness that if the person who is my caretaker or who has power and authority over me is not happy with me, what will become of me? And it creates this psychological, this mental and emotional crisis in a child. So children spend a lot of time discerning the look of the caretaker. Am I okay with mom here? Am I okay with dad here? And if the message is, I'm not happy with you, most children will very quickly change their behavior in order to come back into good graces. Here's the thing about this. We do this from the day we're born until the day we die. And every single one of us has spent our entire life trying to discern the gaze of the other, to know if we're okay here. Am I okay with my spouse? Because if I'm not, I got a problem set. Am I okay with my boss? Am I okay with my friends? Am I okay? Am I okay? Am I okay? And we like to think, as mature, autonomous adults, we don't do this. We can manage ourselves just fine. Well, that's the conscious thinking we tend to have about ourselves, but the reality is that's not true. We never stop trying to discern the gaze of the other. It is as important to me at 60 years old as it is to that 6-year-old infant and his mother. So I am held captive by the gaze of the other. You are held captive by the gaze of the other. So what's the consequence of that? Well, if the gaze of the other is so important to you, there are going to be times in your life when you have to do what? Not be true to your own self in order to come into good graces with the gaze of the other. Is that coherent? Does that make sense? Is that pretty intuitive once I say it? Yeah, so the gaze of the other, I think, has an awful lot to do with why we are not true to ourselves and why Shakespeare's words are so important. But there's an addition to being true to ourselves, and Shakespeare is saying, and thou canst not be false to anyone else. So it's just not a matter of living our authentic self. It's also a statement about the fact that if you're not living your authentic self, you cannot be true, honest, and authentic with others. You are presenting a false facade. So now you can go in your therapist's office this week, whenever you have your appointment, and you can say, great, my minister has given me 30 more years of work to do with you, because this is not easy stuff. So that's the ethical implication of to thine own self be true. It's not just a call to live your true nature and to really consider, how do I do that in this world given the captivity that I'm held in. It's also a prerequisite to ethical living, to right relations with others. A little more Hamlet? Really, this sermon's a self-indulgent riff on what I like about Shakespeare, but I think if you go home with one nugget from the 3 things I'm going to share this morning, you're good. There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Heard that one? There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Reminds me of Nietzsche. One of the things I love to do is to just take Shakespeare, Nietzsche, and Khalil Gibran, and Ayn Rand, and Rabia, and just look at the way that they talk about life and how they all actually often have the same insights, and I can make connections for people around these things that people don't have the luxury of seeing, because you don't have the luxury of spending so much time prepping sermons for people and knowing all this material. But I do, and when I read this stuff, I get all of these connections go on in my head. And believe it or not, what Shakespeare wrote here, there's nothing either good nor bad, but thinking makes it so, is basically what Nietzsche meant in one of his more popular and profound sayings when he said, there is no truth, only interpretations. Now, people actually misuse that an awful lot, but Nietzsche said it, and he's saying something very similar to Shakespeare. So what are they saying? Phenomena occur in life, and it is the function of the mind to witness and interpret phenomena and assign phenomena meaning. This is how we create our maps of reality so that we can move through the world with relative success. This is an important function of the mind. But how we experience the mind, or how we experience reality, or the assignment we give to phenomenon, is entirely dependent on the idiosyncratic nature of our own minds. Philosophers talk a fair amount about the problem of other minds, meaning you can only know yours, you can't know someone else's, because every person's mind is unique to that person. Every person's mind is idiosyncratic. So when we witness phenomenon and we take in the information and we interpret it and assign it meaning, we are giving it an idiosyncratic meaning based on who we are in the world. Make sense? You can remember that. It will change your life. In fact, that is the last bit of PR I can do before the Enneagram class starts tomorrow night, because it's also very Enneagram for those of you who are going to take the class. So this implies that the mind does not interpret experience in a universally objective way that would allow us to know objectively the meaning of a thing. Your mind, my mind, minds in general, do not interpret experience in a universally objective way that allows us objectively to know the meaning of a thing. None of us is omniscient, right? There's always a limit to what we can know and understand, and therefore a limit to our meaning making. But we tend to go about considering our perspectives as though they are omniscient. Don't we? I think we do. There's a great test for this. Next time you encounter somebody who shares a perspective with you that's very different from your own, think about your reaction. How do you usually react to somebody who gives you a perspective that's really different from your own? Usually, we have some kind of internal dialogue like, well, they just don't get it. Or, they really don't know how to think this through. Or, just, I'm putting that one over here and not have to deal with that person. Rarely, if ever, do we say, when we encounter a perspective that's that different from our own, maybe I need to listen to this perspective, because despite the fact that I don't share it, somebody is handing me a gift of what it means to live in their skin and look at the world through their eyes. And you may not share that perspective, but if you close yourself off to it, you reduce the possibility that somebody is going to share you a perspective or a piece of wisdom that you won't otherwise get because you're filtering their perspective through your criteria of what a perspective ought to look like. Does that make sense? Can you apply that to politics? We need to be listening to one another, but I'm not going to go into politics at the moment. So this is just a caution to us to be a little more humble. No matter how deep our convictions run about our perspectives, about our map of the world, we should have some skepticism about our interpretation of the world. Whether the world's another person or a situation. We should always have skepticism. It's very hard to have skepticism about your interpretation of the world, isn't it? That's the thing we question least. Why do we not question our interpretation of the world? Why do we not question our perspective? Well, look, I'm 60 years old. I have spent 60 years on this planet trying to figure it out. And I think I've got it figured out. Because if I didn't have it figured out, I wouldn't be thinking about it the way I do. How many people hold a perspective that you don't think is the right one? Raise your hand. Would you have said that before the last 5 minutes? Who goes around going, yeah, this is my perspective, but I know it's wrong? No, we hold perspectives and we think they're right because we spend our entire conscious life building our interpretation of the world. And that seems to me the way the world works. So why would I question that perspective? Well, that perspective may not be right. It may be right enough for you to get through the world, but it may not be ultimately right. So let's have humility and listen to other perspectives. All right, one more. The Tempest. What's past is prologue. Probably not a line from Shakespeare you've heard. But there are a lot of these lines in Shakespeare you haven't heard that are really deep and profound and wise. What's past is prologue. So we carry the past with us. And our past is the narrative about ourselves that we hold. Okay? So, my narrative. I'm Alex Riegel. I was born June 21st, 1963. My mother's Barbara, my father's Darwin. I have a brother, Brian. I have a sister, Kendra. We were raised in Saline, Michigan. I ended up eventually going to the University of Michigan and studying philosophy, and then I went on to Harvard Divinity School, and then I became a minister, and then I married my wife, and then we had a kid, and and run it out until in this moment I'm at First Unitarian Church in Cincinnati talking to you all. That's my narrative. Part of that narrative also is I'm an introvert. And I don't like to dance much. And I'm not a very good singer. And. That's my narrative to this point in time. That's what it means for the past to be prologue for me. So the narrative of who we are to this moment in time, in my understanding or my thinking or what I've noticed in people, is a trajectory of our life heading in a certain direction that we are fated to live out based on our understanding of ourselves and the narrative we've held to date. All the things we think about who we are will determine how we show up in the world tomorrow. Does that make sense? It's like we've been launched into life, and we've gotten this far, and there's a trajectory, and it will inevitably go like this. And we obey that trajectory. We obey that narrative. We believe who we are is set in stone, and the remainder of the book of our life will be pretty predictable because of the narrative that tells us who we are today. This is a way of saying we sleepwalk through life. Like I hit on this theme a week or two ago, right? We sleepwalk through life. We live in obeisance to who we've been and take little concern for what we might become. Not what we will become, but what we might become. So what's the antidote to your sleepwalking through life? We must wake up. We must wake up. Our past narrative does not set in stone the future narrative of our lives that we are to complete. I mean, it does if you don't wake up. to who you are in the moment. But it doesn't have to. So this is a choice point in life that we usually ignore. The choice point that at some point in time I can wake up enough to become aware of the fact that I've been sleepwalking through life and choose either to sleepwalk through life because waking up is too much effort, or to wake up in my life and not live in obeisance to the narrative of my past that tells me who I think I am in the world today. Does that make sense? I'm not asking you because I don't think you can understand it. I'm asking you to just, am I being coherent this morning? That choice point is life giving you an opportunity in that moment to become free of yourself. So we can choose at any point in time to begin consciously to write a different narrative that defies the trajectory of the one we were on. Maybe I'll dance. The gaze of the other. Maybe I'll sing. Maybe I'll. Maybe I'll write a narrative for the rest of the book of my life that goes in a 90-degree direction different from the trajectory I was on. Now, how does that sound to you? Does that sound appealing to you? Like you could wake up tomorrow and choose to be very different than who you've been to this point in your life today. I find that an enticing prospect. I find that feels like freedom. I find that feels like hope. I find that feels like possibility. I find that feels like creativity. Yes? Not a single amen? Ramona, if you are watching, type amen into the chat, sister. Going back to Nietzsche for just a second. Nietzsche says we have our highest significance as works of art. We human beings have our highest significance as works of art. And what Nietzsche was saying there is take your life into your own hands and create who you will become. Make yourself a work of art. Write a different ending to your book. It's your book. The denouement, I love that word, the denouement is yours to complete. All right, so we'll just end with this and then we'll do our prelude. Postlude. Prologue. Let us go our way, always remembering to make beauty for one another and letting love have jurisdiction. Blessed be, my friends.